Welcome to This Got Me Thinking, where clarity comes from conversations and the connections that spark from them. I am your host, Chris LaFay, and today I have the pleasure of chatting with Rachel Allen. Rachel's story starts with a moment a lot of people quietly fear: doing everything you were told would work and realizing that it didn't. Graduating in the 2008 recession, stuck in a warehouse job with no clear path forward, Rachel made a choice that felt extraordinarily reckless from the outside, but necessary on the inside. She left the country, yes, the country, with no plan and no safety net. This conversation is about what happens when staying feels more dangerous than leaving, and how clarity, momentum, and confidence get forged when there's no backup plan. I'll let Rachel tell her story. You obviously have had times of grinding things out. Where have you experienced kind of that first moment of like rhythm and structure, like things are just going smoothly and it doesn't feel as hard as it was before?
I think it was probably about a year after I started working with my first non-job board related client. Because I started working with this person and they were very generous in introducing me to their friends. And so all of a sudden, I'm living in London at the time, and all of a sudden I've gone from job board content mill type stuff to having a 6-month waiting list in the London entrepreneur community. And I was like, oh, look at that. That's kind of cool. And things started really humming along.
What changed, like when that happens? I know this is true for me. I don't have the patience to put people on a waiting list. I am such a strike while the iron's hot person. So the mentality shift, I know for me, had to change. How did that shift of mentality from I'm accepting everybody as much as I possibly can and bringing them all in to being able to then say, no, ma'am, you're gonna wait a couple of months. Like, how did that change happen for you?
I think part of it was just I ended up taking on too many people and burning out very badly, especially towards the first end of that first year with that client. And I learned that apparently when I'm burned out, I sleepwalk, which is a really odd thing because I would find myself, I would go to bed and I would wake up in my office looking at the walls because I have these big like
Oh
whiteboard
no.
sheets. So I'd be like, I'd wake up and be looking at the whiteboard sheets, and I was like, okay, well, this is untenable. So I made the decision of like, well, I've got all these people booked. I'll take deposits and they can book in a time, and then I'll give them a ton of work before they start working with me, so they don't feel like they're just twiddling their thumbs until I can get to them.
I'm making an assumption here, and correct me if I'm wrong. So if you have a wait list, obviously you have folks that are interested in working with you. Have you intentionally avoided the idea of bringing on other people to help with that waiting list and actually have contracted team members and stuff like that?
So I actually did that for a couple years. After I had the
Hmm.
waiting list, I ran a waiting list for a couple years, and then I realized that I wanted to stop doing so much just day to day, like copywriting, sales pages, emails type stuff.
Yeah.
And instead of just doing less of that, I got the idea of like, oh, I should start an agency so that other people can do that stuff instead of, just not doing that stuff and doing other things. And I didn't actually really want an agency. I didn't think it through. And I kind of pushed the boulder up the hill for a couple years, had a team. It was working fine, but I just didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. But of course, by that time, I'm like totally sunk cost fallacy of like one more year, and then I'll like it.
It's the chasm. That's the chasm I'm talking about. Like once you dive down that route, you you feel like you have to go through that trench until you get out on the other side. And it's excruciating.
Oh, absolutely. And especially because I didn't really want that to begin with. But I was like, I mean, I guess I'm here. I guess we're going to do this. And I knew probably about a year because I've descaled from the agency and now I just work one on one again. But I knew about a year before I shut it down, I was like, yeah, I'm going to have to shut it down. And it is going to just put a crater in the side of my business. And I tried to avoid it, tried to put it off, but eventually I was like, you know what? There's no other way around this. I'm just going to take the hit and rebuild.
What was it about running an agency that you did not like?
I didn't like running a team of my own that I had to be in contact with every day. Um, Weirdly, I'm okay with doing it with other people's teams. I'm actually really great as a fractional. But when it's my own, something about it is like, why do you people need me all the time? Like, just figure it out. Just do the job.
I don't disagree with that at all, actually.
That's the thing where it's like, come on, we're all grown-ups here. Can we just do the work? Oh, wait, you need to talk to me about how you feel about it? Okay, I guess.
I'm not and this goes across the board of my personality, is like I'm not like a feelings person. When I say I'm not a company culture person, it's not that I don't want people working 45, 50, 60 hour weeks. Like I don't want that. Here's a better way to phrase it. I'm not a curator of culture, mainly because I don't require it. Like if and I that sounds odd, but like when I did work as a more like full-time consultant in either the dev or design space underneath another agency, I got invited to all the like company hangouts and the dinners and this, that, and the other. And I had friends at the office, but I hung out with them in different locales and doing different things, not as the large group. And I'm like, well, Bob's not going to be there, so why would I go? And I loved those places. Those were all fantastic places. Like I had no issue, like zero issues with them. But and I enjoyed my time there. I spent multiple years at a couple of them. And I would go have lunch with like the owners or the project managers or account managers and stuff. Like it was great. But the curator of all of that and kind of like the being the hoorah person, and I'm a big Savannah Bananas fan, and the guy that owns the Savannah Bananas, the yellow tux guy, and like that, not me at all.
No, same. Phenomenally introverted. Like, I will happily just sit in my office and not talk to anyone all week. The weeks that I don't have calls on my calendar are my favorite weeks.
When you went through the disassembling process, talk to me a little bit about your mindset and what you learned through that disassembling process.
So I put it off for a really long time because I was just, afraid, I guess, a little bit ashamed of giving up on, the course that I said I was going to do. And then, of course, afraid of like the impact it was going to have on my business and, letting these people down because they weren't going to be on this team anymore. And I went through all of that. And then bizarrely, I was invited to go on an expedition cruise in the polar regions by a friend of mine. She had an extra ticket. And I was like, okay, sure, twist my arm.
Uh-huh.
As that, as that happens. But she, I came back from that just so like zenned out and kind of with my perspective changed that I was like, you know what? I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know that it's ready for it to go. And I feel very lucky that I had that sort of almost like anesthetizing factor to be like, all right, let's just do it.
How did you come to terms with the shame that you felt for shifting what felt like shifting gears on that vision completely? So obviously you got that disconnect, right? But when you actually felt comfortable and more confident in this is the path, what actually changed there for you?
So I tried to look at it from the perspective of one, it's all data, right? Like I learned stuff, I gained skills through it. It's not like it was a total loss. So that felt a little better. And then something that I say to myself about financial mistakes is I've wasted more money on dumber things. And so I translated that to I've wasted more time on dumber things. Like I learned something,
Yeah.
something happened out of it. And, it is what it is. Now it's time to do something else.
The question I have for us today is, where has comfort quietly become a cage? There's this difference, especially in running a business, or at least the frame of reference I'm going to talk about is in the process of, running an agency, of being content on one side of the continuum versus being complacent on the opposite side of that continuum. And it's really easy to let contentedness slip into complacency. There's this whole concept of when you're an owner of a business that you take yourself out as like the primary cog of the business where everything is relying on you and you alone. And if you ever leave, even for a day, the machine falls apart. And so once you're able to kind of, remove yourself and remove that cog from the machine and replace it with other people that kind of take on those burdens that you have, you as the owner kind of get to sit in what some people call like the owner's box, where you get to be the owner, you get to be the face of the business, but lead generation isn't reliant on you. Creative direction isn't reliant on your time. You just get to sit here and just basically all the time and effort and the stress and the sweat and the blood, sweat, and tears that you put into it all comes to fruition. And now you get to kind of, I won't say like sit back and, have the easy life. That's not true. Nothing about entrepreneurship is simple, but a lot of that weight and burden is gone. And in that stage, and also in other stages as well, too, you can get very complacent. And I've seen it in myself, and I've seen it in a handful of other business owners to where they have felt that everything was running well without them. And there was a percentage of that is true. But if you get too comfortable in those tasks that you've delegated out to where you don't go back and check things, you don't go back and see things with your own eyes, that it's very easy for things to run amok. And it doesn't even have to look like the running amok. It doesn't have to look dirty or crazy or obvious. It could be these slow minus ones that eventually stack up into something larger, that if you don't have your eyes on it, it could get awry effectively. And one of the things that I'm in a roundtable of owners, and it's a common phrase, but we like to say it often, is don't delegate out your eyes. Like, none of our businesses inside of our group are at the scale enough to where we can completely take a backseat into that owner's box effectively. And it's so simple to delegate your eyes because you find somebody that you trust and you just don't have to think about that aspect of the business anymore. But show up in those spaces, make sure you're checking things, try things out and test, and make sure that the quality that you started this with is the same quality, if not hopefully getting better and improving, than where it was when you were there. And if you notice that those things start slipping, step in and say, hey, let's figure out how do we put some guardrails around this to fix it so that you don't get comfortable with where you're at and have contentedness backslide into complacency. Because a business owner that's complacent about their business, you might be able to sit on a plateau for a little while and just kind of coast, but eventually, if you're coasting and you don't have an engine behind you pushing you forward and up, you will eventually slide down. That's what Rachel got me thinking.